How do we know when people are watching this?
I don't know.
See, this is the nice thing with Periscope is that you knew, like it showed.
Yeah. Hello. Ryan, you go first.
Fine. Okay.
You got the outline.
I got the
outline.
So we actually have the outline. If you're watching, Michael, there is the outline. So that's because of you. So yeah, welcome to our third Cascadia Soccer Collective podcast. This is our first time using Google Hangout. Normally we do this on Periscope. And so we're still fleshing out things like lighting.
This will probably be as fleshed out as the lighting situation gets, to be honest. Unless you.
Yeah.
Whoa! Oh, it's because it's playing over here.
I think there might be some lag.
No, there's not. There's a lag. It's definitely a lag.
Okay, I hope it's not like that. But
it's because I was playing it. It's not live yet. We're talking to no one, so.
It's not live yet?
It's just hard for me to stare at the camera. Well, it's not showing up on my thing.
It's probably going to take some time. So is anyone even going to be able to watch us?
Oh, there you go. Hey, there it goes.
Okay. All right. So any feedback, any suggestions, tweet us and let us know because this is all a work in progress and a lot of this is just off the cuff. So yeah. So first off tonight, we're going to start talking about...
Introduce our special guest.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to botch your names. I always say Corinne or Karen.
Well, it's Karen, so
Karen.
Second try, you got it.
Second try.
That's not bad.
So this is Karen.
We are joined by her because she's the winner of our NWSLFL group. So we decided that when we created that group that every week the winner we would try to have on in some way. Worked out this week. She happens to live in Portland. Some people in the group are from out of state, so
yeah.
Worked out this week. Yeah.
Yep. So do we want to start off talking about Fantasy League?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's start off with it. So it's been kind of a crazy week. A lot of people put their eggs in the Seattle FCKC basket, and that did not go well for them. How about you? Did you use a lot of players this week?
We talking week 2 or week 1 right now?
Let's talk week 2.
I guess
we'll backtrack to week 1.
Okay.
Just we're in the middle of it. May as well just get out of the way.
Yeah, I did actually have a lot of players from both Seattle and Kansas City. Now I'm still holding out hope for some points since they play each other, so the week's not over. Yeah, so somebody's got to get some points.
It's 0-0 tie.
In which case, defenders get points.
That's true. Okay. How many points did you get this week? Let's find out. I'm going to take a look at our group here. Ryan, what was the name of your team? Just so we can
Rose City FC.
Rose City FC. So Ryan got 68 points.
I'm in 3rd place. Oh yeah. For now, anyways.
I'm in 6th place, and Karen got ahead of us by probably double. So she's a clear leader right now, 107.5. The next highest, Southeast Woso at 89.5. So yeah, definitely a clear lead. What was it that got you all those points in week 1?
I've got to say it was Megan Rapinoe. That hat trick. I mean, that ended up being a lot of points.
Did you captain her?
I did not captain her.
Are you kicking yourself for not captaining her? Who did you captain?
I think I captained Little.
It's always Captain Little. That's good sound advice.
Which I can't kick myself too much for not captaining Rapinoe because I never considered it.
Yeah.
I think maybe I could have captained Long, but she was the only other person that I think I.
It's always those decisions where you are kicking yourself when you change people out at the last minute. I know I did that week 1 with Allie Long. I had her and I took her out, and I always think that was a very poor decision.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of, with my team, I went with what I knew, which is mostly Thorns players. But then you run into that problem of you can only have 5 players from your team. And so initially when I was my goalkeeper, I started off with Unger. And then I ran into problems where I'm hitting roadblocks because I was just hitting that limit. Mm-hmm. So then I ended up going with Barnhart and Betos. And after the first match, I realized I should have stuck Betos in first because Barnhart let in a goal, which actually lost me points. Yeah. And Betos had, I think, 13 points after the first week. But that's all right. I had Allie Long, and she got me like 26 points. But then I had Nadia Nadim, Kim Little, and I think Fishlock was on my team. But my roster consists mostly of Thorns, Kansas City, and Seattle, with the exception of Ojai, because she's awesome, and I will continue to leave her as one of my forwards.
Okay, so you are very knowledgeable in soccer and can offer advice for the coming fixtures. So what advice would you say to people who are making their, because you got to redo your lineup, by the way. Like if you had week 2 and you think it'll carry over, that would be a mistake because a lot of those teams aren't even playing. So here's a look at the fixtures if you want to take a look.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is always knowing who's playing, because there's nothing worse than having a team filled with players who don't have a game. So far this season has been hard.
Mm-hmm.
Things have not happened how we expected.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first week I used national team performance a lot, like who had looked on their game. It's one of the reasons I put Rapinoe in, because she looked good in the last US game. But then week 2 so far has destroyed everything I thought I knew about teams in the NWSL.
Yeah, definitely.
So now I don't know. It takes like 4 or 5 weeks before you kind of figure it out and you can really plan. And then this year there's going to be all these breaks when everything changes, when players are gone and you have to relearn everything you learned.
So to keep up with who's going to be in the roster and who's playing that week, and you have to really be into it in order to.
Yeah, injury reports are important. Hopefully teams will do better about releasing that information, because it's kind of been vague and not complete.
Perfect example today, we were just talking about Nadia, who got subbed out at the half at Sky Blue, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, but we don't know what is going on with her. And she's a huge player for Sky Blue and also for the Fantasy League. She always gets, she always has a solid performance every week. So
I think she had me like 14 points last week.
So yeah, I mean that's one of those things where it's the inconsistency of the player report or the injury reports is frustrating.
Yeah, so we'll see how this week goes.
What team would you focus on if you had to pick one team with fixtures next week? That
I think. Oh man, it's really hard to say, because I think the Chicago-Portland game, there could potentially be a lot of points, but they might, depending on where you're going, attackers or defenders, they might cancel each other out somewhat. I'm not sure, unless you're looking for defenders to get points from like goals or assists. I'm not sure I would have many from those teams. So, but
who would be the number one player from these fixtures that you would definitely have in your roster?
I think I think you have to keep Kristen Press. She looked great this past week and is always dangerous.
She can do that to Seattle's defense and Hope Solo.
Yeah.
She can do it to any team.
Exactly. I'd say for the Boston-Houston game, Carly Lloyd couldn't find the deep end of a pool this last week, but she is always dangerous.
Right.
She was getting balls that were just like half a foot off from where she needed to keep them to get a great shot, and so that could potentially change, especially because I don't see Boston being able to defend her.
Now Boston is always, I always look at Boston as a weaker team, pretty much in any fixture. If you had to choose a player from Boston who you would keep in, who would you choose?
I'm not really all that. I don't actually know all that many players from the Boston roster anymore.
That's the thing, is that they've gotten rid of so many. It's like Kat Whitehill, Olsenier, and name another one. It's I guess Christine Unis.
That's true. Yeah, they do have her now.
Yeah.
Who was it that scored against Portland?
See, I don't even remember.
From the Boston game?
Yeah.
I don't know. I blocked that.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
That was was like a 4-1, 4-0 loss for us or something.
It was no.
This year, the first
game this year.
Oh, I'm thinking back to that.
Ugh, no, that was Jasmine Reeves.
Yeah,
she retired.
She's out, so don't have to worry.
See, I was so underwhelmed by Boston's performance at our first match, and I just forgot that they scored against us.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on Fantasy League? There is a delay. So if you guys tweet us questions or we see your comments on the thing and we're past that subject, we'll try to come back to it to hopefully address those issues. We'll keep checking, but for now, look, we just got 2 comments. Says John says I'm crying this week because I put in Barnhart, who plays 2 games, and then Washington promptly put 3 past her. Me too. Ryan convinced me because he was bragging about having her, and
I didn't brag.
There was some bragging.
You know what? That's payback for you telling me week 1. Oh, you put Sydney LaRue up there. She wants vengeance against Seattle. What LaRue do? LaRue actually lost me points.
I made a goose egg. Yeah.
So I don't want to hear any bitching from you.
Yeah. Yes. That was that was.
I don't think anybody expected Washington to put 3 goals past Kansas City like that.
No, and the goals that they got were beautiful. I mean, Crystal Dunn's was kind of just a knock-in.
There's free kick.
Oh my God, so beautiful. Well, that's a great transition. Let's start talking about the fixtures from this weekend, and we can start with that game because that game just had some beauties in it. Nairn was just outrageous. Her kick from I don't even know how many yards out was that. 35 yards. It was insane.
The free kick, the dead ball actually that she scored
right on me.
It was just from the edge.
Yeah, but then the first goal that she scored was just she whipped it, and it was amazing. Mm-hmm. Crystal Dunn, obviously good for her for scoring that goal in front of Jill Ellis when she didn't make the national team roster. That's got to feel good. I've always been a big fan of Crystal Dunn. And as they should. I think Crystal Dunn, while she was probably considered a lot, her injuries probably held her back a little bit more than she would have liked. But Allie Long, I don't think was given the due consideration she deserved.
No, she wasn't.
In the first place.
It's good for us. I feel bad for Allie because she deserves a spot
on this podcast is quickly becoming the We Love Allie Long podcast. And every week it's how much we love Allie Long.
This week, love about
this week it's thanks Allie Long for the game-winning goal.
Yeah.
Last week it was thanks Allie Long for those 2 beautiful goals.
And all my points.
And all the points.
She got me points this time too. She was my captain.
That'll be our running theme every week. It's just how much we love Allie Long. My ongoing tweets about how I think she should be president because I do. Not really, but hypothetically. So that game was a lot of fun. Who scored for Kansas City? Heyo, that's right.
Yeah. And actually I remember I saw on Twitter from the guy who does the stats for the fantasy league that Heyo actually led that game in stats.
Oh, really?
Even though her team lost 3-1.
Well, I guess that's fantastic that she's new to the team and really being well incorporated into a midfield that was frankly very good when she got there.
I think the biggest difference between her and everybody else in that game was her shots were on goal.
Right.
Because watching that game, it was Kansas City had the ball for the majority of it. They were creating opportunities. They just couldn't get that final shot on goal.
Mm.
They didn't test Harris all that much at all. She had a few saves, but not as many as you would have thought based on how much it seemed Kansas City was dominating the game at times.
So excluding the game that will be on Thursday, who do you think, what goalkeeper probably got the most points?
The only one with a shutout was Unger, I believe.
Right, but did she face a lot of shots to make saves to get points? I mean, I feel like that game was so devoid. There was 1 corner kick the whole game.
That's true. So it probably won't be a super high number, but
I think if it's anything like MLS Fantasy, you get extra points
just for
the shutout.
Yeah.
For clean sheets, you get extra points.
That's the big goalkeeper thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's also your defenders too. If they're on a team where there's a clean sheet and there's extra points allocated. So
yeah, that's how I remember. I looked at all the way they were going to do all the points, but they've changed them a couple of times as the NWSL has changed what stats they release. And so I don't know exactly, but typically, yes, goalkeepers get a fairly significant bonus for a shutout. You also get points for each individual save, but the shutout bonus is more than you get. You'd have to make at least 5 saves to equal what you get for a shutout.
Interesting. What was the other exciting game? Sky Blue and
Houston.
Jess McDonald action. A little Jess McDonald action.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was nice to see.
Yeah,
And also sad to see.
Yep. I guess the points for that game came in kind of late. Like there wasn't a whole lot of action.
Yeah.
I don't remember when the goals were scored.
Well, I
think Sky Blue scored first.
Sky Blue scored first.
And then Houston came in much later. Like I think Sky Blue probably scored before the first, like in the first half, and then Houston scored much later. And Jess McDonald, she's going to be. This is why, like we were talking last week about who's going to be a dark horse. I think it's going to be Houston. Them or Washington are going to be the ones that are going to creep up on people. Well, actually, more like Houston because no one expects anything out of them.
Right.
You know,
the expectations are low. The thing that I think will hold Houston back is that so many of their big players are going to be gone that it's going to potentially hurt them.
God, but they know that.
Yeah.
They know that. So you're going to have like Jess McDonald.
Randy Waldron at all.
Yeah. I mean, they know that a lot of those big players are going to be gone, so they're going to be trying to like get Ojai and McDonald more time, and we know Jess can score.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about Houston's forwards because Jess can absolutely score. The problem I see with Houston is who's going to give them the ball. When you don't have Brian and you don't have Lloyd for the World Cup, I think that's going to be their biggest problem.
That role? I'm not familiar with the rest of their lineup enough, like their bench enough to really speak to it, because it seems like when you look at their roster, these names are jumping out at you. I mean, Morgan Bryan, Carly Lloyd, McLeod. Like there's so many great players, but it's like you stuck those players out, and it's like who they have left.
Yeah, I know for McLeod, they've said that they think Henniger is a starting keeper worthy.
player, I agree with that. I think she's probably her and Bates are probably the best backup keeper.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be all that like as big of a problem as other teams will have. But that's the midfield issue, I think, because they've changed it so much this year.
Right.
By getting Brian with the pick and then adding Lloyd, which totally transforms the roster completely.
And how do we feel about Sky Blue? Now they've beaten KC, they tied Houston, who's like full power Houston. I mean,
I don't know. Sky Blue was kind of a pain in the ass for everyone last year.
Sky Blue they were really tough for us first year. They were tough for us second year. And they're always kind of this team that randomly does good things, like when you don't expect it. And I feel like the fact that they beat KC, right, at home, the home opener, reigning national champions, shut them out. That speaks to, I think.
So the midfield for the Dash, they've got Rachel Axon, Brittany Bach.
So Bach, they're hoping to be back from injury soon. She's been out for a year.
Game one.
Okay, I got it listed as active, but
well, I think she's cleared. She's enough fitness and stuff to get back into games.
Yeah, it'd be really great to see her back.
Ashley Nick.
She started this weekend.
Oh yeah, so they don't have much in the way of a midfield, do they? There's Axon, Bach, Morgan Bryan, Carly Lloyd.
We're getting reviews that this is not going well.
About the
on YouTube.
Yeah, you know what? I was kind of sort of thinking we should probably go to Periscope because it just worked a hell of a lot better than this. So what was said?
Audio is not good, and you guys keep talking. I'll get this set up.
Okay, so they're going to be losing Morgan Bryan and Carly Lloyd, so that takes 2 out of the 5 in the midfield. Yeah. So then who do you drop? Do you take someone out of the back line and drop them into the midfield? Or do you maybe – so do the Dash normally – what kind of formation do they normally run?
I'm not 100% sure what they're doing. Though I know that right now with their fullbacks, they have been a lot of converted forwards already. So because like they've played Ella Masser as an outside back in the past, like the first 2 games.
Just pull that forward.
You need something solid to sit there.
Because it doesn't work that way. Remember because the last time we did that, it was just we were on our side.
Oh, that's true.
So we may have to just we'll prop this up. Did we do this on my chemistry book last time?
We did. It was great.
Yeah, let's do that instead. Okay. All right, let's do this. Oh.
Nobody breathe too hard.
Okay, and I'm gonna put. Oh, here.
This is why we have to get cozy.
This is why you don't. But I like this better because we were getting feedback. The thing that I didn't like with the Google Hangout, even though it's uploading to Google, is that we.
Yeah.
This is what the real
Well, I can see
is on Google.
we had 4 viewers.
Hey, look at us.
It was at 5 and then it went down, so maybe someone switched or
The motion sickness medication will be provided after the broadcast.
There we go.
It's not all that.
This way, the
So it
iPad
won't
does
fall
not
off.
take a tumble. My big old boot behind
Okay,
it.
so if you're having trouble with the YouTube, we've started the Periscope. You can find that link on Twitter. I tweeted that out. Sorry.
you gonna come like sit right in front of us?
No,
Or-
no.
Yeah, come sit in the middle. People want to see you too, believe it or not.
It's just awkward. There's like no good way to frame both of them. It's fine. Let's just talk.
But no one can see you.
Hello. What were we talking about?
Oh, the dash.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we're talking about the dash in the midfield. Because we got 5 in the midfield, but then you have total, but then you've got Morgan Bryan and Carwood Lloyd leaving. So that leaves you 3. So we're talking about what do? Do you bring your defenders?
Can Jess McDonald play in the midfield? She's
I don't
not
think
really
so.
tactically skilled enough, huh?
Probably
I think
not.
see it for more as a true center forward.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, they might have some amateur players that they think will provide good depth that they will bring up for
He's
the time
really
that they're
good
gone.
with Randy's really good with younger players. He's very familiar with that pool.
Yeah.
At least currently. So I trust him. I do think they're going to be the dark horse. I think that they're good. Ella Masters, fantastic. Yeah. Is Stephanie Oak? She's injured, right? Or she was injured at least for one of the games, I think. Because I had considered putting her on my fantasy league, and she.
Did you have a lot of forwards? Couldn't run like 3 in the midfield. Could you just do like a 4-3-4? That's almost like a Paul Riley.
Paul Riley
If you have
formation.
4-3-3, you can't have a 4-3-4 unless you're not playing a goalkeeper.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Well,
Okay.
they don't need one. They don't need one if they're playing Boston. Yeah, Bert, Boston. Like, that's 2 birds. This podcast. This podcast is the Allarong Appreciation and Boston Hating podcast. And then what was the other non-Portland game? Oh, no, it was just those 3, right?
Yeah, there's only 3 games, so
Okay.
there's only 6 teams playing.
Ooh, okay. So, well, let's talk about Portland, Western New York, where Cindy Lerner's doing really amazing in the second half of the game. She disappeared. Disappeared.
She was
Really
isolated.
cool.
Yeah.
I'd never seen that before. I was like, really cool. She got the invisibility cloak from Harry Potter. And it was really great to watch that happen. Seriously, she had some good opportunities in the first half.
But
opportunities and like not super great ones, but she did okay the first half. She wasn't there really the second half.
say that invisibility cloak was a gift from the rain.
Yeah.
It's where she acquired it.
Well,
Here's your parting gift, Sid. It's that invisibility. We really don't want it back. You can have it.
I mean, I think that actually explains a lot of last year. She must have been using it there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And
She
then
did
just
really
took it with her.
Yeah. So,
I wonder if that's what she was wearing when Dom married her. Just like,
that's personal. Things just took a turn.
no, she's pretty. She's very pretty. So is Dom.
But Alabama was fantastic. Who else was really good for us? McCall was very good for us. Kat Williamson was fantastic the first half. Watching her in our half defending. Yes, I agree. It was very disappointing when she went out and was injured. That was shocking. I just saw her take a tumble and then they took her out the half. But yeah, it's really sad when players get hurt, especially when it's your captain.
Yeah. Lana Shim was okay. I don't think she was. She was a little shaky. I don't think she had as good of a game as she did against the Breakers. But that could be because it was the Breakers. And they've got that warm nougaty center just first.
It's always a lot of fun to watch the Mewis sisters, and it was great to see Sam Mewis in person. She is huge. She's a very large, tall person.
I saw her play at the Algarve Cup last year when she made her debut and was amazed at how just she towered over so many players.
sorry we can't hear my sister.
I've been telling Carla to sit in the middle, and she's being obstinate. Like Paul Riley bringing in defenders last season.
Okay.
She's being obstinate, refuses to acknowledge we have a problem. The ship is sinking, but he's still just going to bring in cannons.
They just got to score more goals than the other team. That's it.
Yes, Mana did nearly have a really cool back heel goal, and Jasmine Spencer is always very scary. These are some of the comments we're getting. Jasmine Spencer was fantastic in that time that they beat us in a game that we will never refer to again on this podcast.
We did watch that yesterday, and you watched that though. You talk about how you watched that because that was a harrowing game that brought together the fans. That was really the point where the fans became the 12th person and all that.
Yes.
We still lost, but we were there just singing the.
I watch.
I don't know if I should pity you or not.
Yeah, I honestly don't. I really don't know if I should pity you or not, because that was a very important Thorns moment for me, I think.
Yeah.
We're all like on top of each other. This is so great.
This is getting cozy. Do we want to move this over just a bit so that you can get more of the camera? Because ultimately,
no, there's no good way to do this.
There's not. We'll figure this out. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us. We're gonna figure our shit out eventually.
Yeah. That was. I would rewatch that game. Probably rewatched it full 5 times because I think it's always important to remember your hardest ball. I think, and that was a really terrible game. I've never rewatched the Seattle game because I refuse to believe that it happened.
What Seattle?
The Seattle way.
Oh, I know.
Oh, my
Seattle game?
That game. My birthday fiasco, because that was on my birthday. I went up there all happy and just thinking, we're gonna win. And nope, we did not.
It was amazing. All three of us were there. All three of
Mhm.
us were there, in addition to several of the other people that sit in our row. We had a great time before the game. We had a great time chanting up until the first goal, and then it was like falling off a cliff. It was,
What was really funny about that is that I feel like the Seattle fans started to troll us more than they were rooting for their own team at that point. Like all of a sudden they took notice of what was going on, and they're like, "Oh, hey, we're winning. Let's troll the Portland fans," and not even bother with the fact that we have a great team out there and they're winning. But that's just my distaste for Seattle fans in general. For some, that we may have called this the show where we like to burn the breakers, but it's mostly about trolling Seattle.
we didn't really talk about Seattle-Chicago. Do we think that this is just a one-off? Is Seattle as strong as they were last season, or are they breakable now?
They're breakable. I mean, last season Chicago dealt Seattle their first defeat.
Yeah,
It's true, though. It took a lot longer than it did this year.
yes, it's true.
I was talking to some Chicago fans who I'm friends with on Facebook, and they said it was good to just cut that unbeatable streak like off of the past. Like it was good that they don't even have to, they don't have to think that they're going to try to get it. After game 2, you're done.
Carly Lloyd, Kristen Press, she's kind of like Moses. She gets that ball at her feet. She just runs, and she can split those defenders like the Red Sea. She did it to us last season too.
Yeah, I think one thing she's gotten a lot better at is being engaged for more of the game. I remember one of the games last year when we played them where it seemed like she was just standing in a corner of the field for half the time, and then all of a sudden turned it on and would do something. But it seems like she's doing more throughout the game now. Like she's really worked on actually being engaged and playing for a full 90, not 10 minutes out of the whole thing.
My sister says that Paul Riley has done a good job of playing like Liverpool, and that he refuses to make changes even though an alien from outer space could see. He doesn't. So I mean, you're offering too many criticisms at this point. Moving up the cameras is a process that we try to do.
It doesn't matter. Just I've been telling you this. I'm tall enough. I can just do this without any problems. I think Carlos just doesn't like being in the camera.
No, I do a vidcast with you every week. Here, Ryan. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So what else is on your agenda? Do you want to talk about the English English women?
Yeah. So one thing we always like talking about is expansion, because expansion for the NWSL means that the league is healthy. It means that it's growing, or at the very least, it's not stagnating and it's not going to collapse. And so,
That's your iPad.
Yeah, sure. Wait, what do you want in?
The YouTube.
You look at the YouTube app.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was an article that got posted to the NWSL supporters group on Facebook, which I think everyone who's watching this is probably part of that group. If you're not, look it up. It's actually a lot of fun. I wish there was more trolling though. Generally, there's just drama, not enough trolling like there is in the trifecta. It's a Cascadia trifecta. But someone had posted an article from Think Progress, and I'm actually going to tweet. I'm going to tweet the link since we got people watching on Periscope. I'm going to tweet the link off of the Cascadia Soccer Collective account. In 1 second, so you guys can get a hold of this. It's pretty good. Normally, Think Progress I wouldn't associate with like anything soccer related, but let's see. Okay, there we go. So I tweeted the link. So the title of the article is "In England, No One Can Stop Women's Soccer," and this talks about the creation of the FA's Women's Super League, I think it's called.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah. And so one of the things that's interesting about women's soccer in England is that all the women's clubs are associated with the men's clubs, which is a pretty stark difference from how the NWSL runs things. Let's see. Let me find the little quote in here. But they're talking about how the fastest growing sport in England is women's soccer.
And in the world, I think that could be
Probably
truly said. If you look at the development of other countries, not the most popular or anything like that, but the fastest growing, I think, is a good description of women's soccer in general.
Yeah. But there's a little thing in here that talks about the key component to the Super League strategy for growth is in the name recognition. So you've got like Arsenal ladies, Chelsea ladies, Tottenham ladies, or no, Lady Spurs actually, Lady Spurs, Chelsea, like it's all the men's teams just with ladies on added in. And I don't know how I feel about that personally, because I think on one hand you have the familiarity. Right, everyone knows who Arsenal is, everyone knows who Liverpool is, and you add ladies to it, and all of a sudden, like, oh, ladies football. But then at the same time, I think you kind of wash away that identity, But
it would be the same way if the Thorns were the Timbers ladies or whatever, or they were the Houston Dynamo ladies. As much as it's great to have that MLS support or that EPL support, it makes it an extension of the men's game, which is. You're getting off to a bad start already, even if your intentions are good.
Yeah, I don't think the biggest problem for me with the ladies thing isn't so much that it'd be an extension of the men's team, but it's this other, like, lesser version, because that's the way it's been used in the United States. There's recently been a backlash against all of the collegiate teams that used ladies or something like that in front of their nicknames.
And I think it's different with, like, say college or in the U.S., we say the U.S. men's national team or the U.S. women's national team, but in England or in Spain, it's just the national team and also the women's national team. So there's that distinction. I think when you're dividing people up by gender, you're doing it for both. You're saying, men's Liverpool team and women's Liverpool team. That's different than just saying Liverpool and Lady Liverpool. You know what I mean? I guess the distinction is kind of obscure.
Are people having issues with Periscope?
Oh, probably, right. We got two things going. We're running out of applications.
Okay. So, I think what's interesting is that we're talking about how having this association as ladies, Liverpool ladies and whatnot, like it kind of washes away the identities, but at the same time, it gives them that footing, that financial footing. And that's kind of what we're wanting with the NWSL. Every time we talk about NWSL and the model for growth, Portland gets washed out. We're told not to even discuss Portland because we're such an anomaly. So let's look at the Dash. Well, the Dash, they're doing okay. Their attendance is down from last season.
And John brought up on YouTube Washington, also another great example, I think, of a team that's doing things well.
Well, and that's a team that's done it without any MLS backing. Exactly. They just have a good facility, and they have done a good job building a fan base truly organically with nothing really there. to just jump in on.
And I remember seeing attendance numbers from WUSA, and that was a different time, and they were running a Coach 2099. Totally get that. But you were seeing attendance numbers, for some big games in like the 30,000s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what is it? Just not having Mia anymore? What was it that caused that? I mean, like an insane drop.
I mean, I think you mentioned 99. The country was swept up in that in a way that they haven't been even close since. 2011 was great, and it built a lot of people heard about players in women's soccer from that, but it wasn't the same as being in the United States when you have 90,000 people at the final. Every game, at least every U.S. game in the 99 World Cup had at least, I believe, 60,000 people in attendance. And that's just something that hasn't been able to be replicated. Even in 2003 for the World Cup, the semifinals were in Portland, and they brought in bleachers to bring the attendance, the capacity up to about 30 or 32,000.
Oh, wow.
And that's what it was for the semifinals of the World Cup, compared to 4 years prior when they were playing in football stadiums that sat 75
to
90,000.
Why do you think that was? Because it was essentially the same team, right? Was it not?
It was similar. I mean, part of it, I think that's actually one of the problems that you find with the U.S. team is the 2003 team was the same as the 99 team, 4 years older.
Yeah, that's true.
It was also a very quickly organized tournament because it was not supposed to be hosted by the United States.
I know that much, and it makes sense that they had so much time to plan 99, and they really invested. I mean, if you read the sort of marketing that went into that World Cup, it's insane and totally grassroots, and props to them for making that happen. And then this kind of hustle to get the 2003 done. It makes sense, but still disappointing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But this article, if you have a chance to read it, was awesome because it talks about sport during wartime and how women's sports become. It was the League of Their Own of England. How in a League of Their Own, baseball for women became huge when all the men went away to war. Well, soccer became huge for women when all the men went away to war in England, I think, for the First World War. And it was really interesting to me that it takes all the men leaving and the popularity skyrocketing of this sport. And then this also talks about the fact that it stayed popular even after the men came back. It stayed popular to a point where they had to shut it down because they didn't want it to, I guess, take away of the realness of men's games. I don't know what the reasoning was. Probably simply sexism is probably the only reasoning.
Yeah. So Nicole brought up a good point on Twitter. We were going back to Thorns and Timbers Association, the strength of having the Thorns associated with the Timbers. And she says, but it's not like Thorns being associated with Timbers gave them the fans. What percentage of fans attend both matches? And that's a really good point. I don't know that, but I was kind of discussing this on Facebook earlier. Where some of the few people that I'm friends with on Facebook who attend Timbers and Thorns have said there are Timbers supporters who are like, don't go to Thorns matches. I don't know what the percentage is. I know I've ran into people who are like, Thorns, what's that? I'm like, you're shitting me. But I live in such an insular soccer bubble. Like anytime someone asks who the Thorns are,
It's interesting. It's interesting to me that there is a line so distinct between Thorns and Timbers fans. I mean, and there are definitely people like us who will go to both and support both, but there is a very distinct line for support. And it's interesting because it's not necessarily the people you might think. It's not all women and families supporting the Thorns. There's definitely a different fan base. Oh, thanks for the RT, Ryan.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm trying to do my best. We're gonna get all this tech stuff streamlined.
Maybe we'll take a poll to find out which version was better, YouTube or Periscope.
I'm kind of liking the Periscope, even though we can't upload to YouTube. But so an interesting thing in this article they brought up that we haven't touched on, because we're kind of facing the same problem, or the NWSL is going to face the same problem, is that when times get tough for these English teams, the first thing they cut are the women's teams. We don't really have that problem. Merritt Paulson isn't going to cut the Thorns. He's not going to have that. I don't know about the Dash ownership group, if that would be a problem. But NWSL is being bankrolled by all the various national soccer federations. Well, somewhat bankrolled, at least the key players are, and then the appropriate, and then the teams themselves are having to come up with what cash they can to pay the players. Then they're kind of having to do things on their own, and they're not at the whim of the parent company. You know, so.
But at the same time, if the Thorns or the Dash were doing so bad that they have to be cut, you can cut them, right? You could get rid of that team. Probably not easily, probably not without a mess, but you could. But if the Timbers were to go bankrupt, then there would be no more Thorns. And I think that's kind of like that.
Well, no, I don't know if that's like the case, because I was thinking about this earlier. And so the Timbers are owned by MLS. Merritt Paulson, it's a single entity system. So all that money gets put into a pot. The Thorns are essentially being bankrolled by Merritt Paulson, because I don't think you can divert money from the MLS pot into NWSL. I don't think you're allowed to do that. So Paulson, even if the Timbers went out, like, I don't know how much money Paulson gets from the Timbers every year. Yeah, it would make it difficult if the Timbers went out of business. Let's say MLS collapsed with no more Timbers. It might be hard for Paulson to keep the Thorns around, but the Thorns, it's such a low cash investment. You don't have to put all that much money into it for the product. Like, you can't tell me that the Thorns are costing as much as the Timbers. And since
a salary cap alone.
Yeah, so I don't think. I think Paulson probably bankrolls most of that, since there's not like that. I think the NWSL has a different ownership system set up than MLS.
It's definitely different. I mean, with the federations being involved the way they are, it has to be different. What was I going to say about?
Nicole, we can't have it all. Yeah.
I don't know if Thorns would go before T2, honestly. I don't think that would happen. Because I think the thing is if it came down to it, you could just put T2 back into the reserves. I mean, that's essentially what that was. Or you send it back to Sacramento. That's what existed before T2 came around. You know, I get the feeling if times got tough, T2 would go first. I think, because I think in terms of maybe revenue generated, Thorns probably pulling a little bit more than T2 at this point. Because if you look at just say attendance alone, T2.
Yeah, but how much does it cost to say rent out Merlot and employ the people at Merlot as opposed to Providence Park? I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answers to those questions.
I think that they're all completely separate entities, and there's not really a situation in which you would be choosing between like T2 or the Thorns. I know when they are talking about like how the MLS ownership as related to the NWSL, they're not talking about MLS money. They're talking about the facilities and structure and having those things in place that a lot of the teams in the NWSL just don't have. Their fields and locker room facilities and all of that stuff the MLS teams have. And so if they have access to those, that's like the biggest thing.
I think that there was an article by Jamie Goldberg, I want to say I might be wrong about that, where the players, I think they had Angie Kerr and Nikki Marshall, so these former players reflecting on their careers. And they were just talking about how it's just night and day when you talk about playing for the Thorns, and not even the crowd, like just disregarding, the awesome attendance or whatever, and that environment to play in, but just like going to work and like going to the locker room and, changing for a game, it feels like you're in a professional club as opposed to going somewhere where it's basically a high school stadium, the equivalent of a high school
literally
stadium.
A high school stadium in some cases.
Stadium. So I think that if you treat something, and maybe that same principle could be applied from the 1999 World Cup, if you treat something like it's important and you give it that treatment of, we're going to play in football fields, we're going to play to 90,000 fans, and we're going to play in Providence Park to 13,000, 14,000 fans and give our women really good facilities, then you know what, they'll win the 1999 World Cup, they'll win the 2013 championship, they'll do well because they're treated like professionals.
Yeah, I do think this league is finally trying to find the proper balance between those two things, because I think the WUSA, they fed into that idea just a little bit too much, and they went everything too big.
Yeah.
And so they ran out of money real fast.
But I guess, so something I didn't know, because I'm new to women's soccer, I'm new to soccer in general, is I guess apparently by the third year, like teams were already collapsing with WUSA, right? But we're not seeing that this year.
I don't remember WUSA. I know WPS definitely, because you had St. Louis fold in the middle of the season.
Ooh, that's painful.
That's the sign. That's the sign.
It was the middle of the, not even the middle of the second season, actually. And also in the WPS, one of the California teams folded after the second season, whichever one Marta was on at that time that won the championship. And then she went to the other one and won the championship, and they folded. But yeah, we so far everything with this one just seems so much more stable.
Yeah. What was it with WPS? Was it? I mean, it was Marta money partially, right? But it was also just crappy ownership across the board.
There was a lot. I mean, there were a few in particular that really helped destroy the league.
Need not be named. You all know who we're talking about.
So Nicole tweeted, she's like, I firmly believe that the treatment of women's football as professional is what's driving growth in Europe. And that's true. I mean, and we're going to get there. But the problem that the United States faces is that soccer is already seen as a niche, is seen as that niche sport. It's not a sport that has a whole lot of respect. It's getting there. I think MLS, the fact that MLS has been around for 20 years and has managed to make soccer somewhat more popular and a little bit more acceptable to growth. I think the American Outlaws have done a good job. They're really spreading the word of soccer. I guess not to make it sound all gospel-y or anything, or like a gospel, but I think we're at that watershed moment where soccer is going to go from niche and kind of obscure to a lot more popular, and that's going to bode well for the women's league.
You know, what'd be interesting to look up is everyone always talks about how in World Cup years, and let's talk specifically last year about the Men's World Cup, how you know that huge level of competition will help soccer in America. I'm wondering. I mean, they had a team collapse last year. They had a team fold. Does it help? Does the World Cup help a league?
Oh wait, are we talking? Sorry, are you talking
I'm trying
about?
to apply like the logistics of MLS or the World
Oh,
Cup
you're talking about Chivas. Oh, Chivas was a
the
whole
women.
shit show. That you can't blame the decline of Chivas on anything MLS was doing. That's because Chivas was plagued with problems from the beginning. One, they got slapped with a lawsuit because of their discriminatory hiring practices. They were losing fans because their parent, they're owned by Chivas Guadalajara, and they just weren't putting much money into the group or into Chivas USA. They just weren't winning a lot of matches, and the ownership group just didn't really care. MLS had to finally step in and take over the group. So Chivas, you can't. I don't know if we have a Chivas in NWSL where you.
Well, I mean, okay, fine. Then I mean, ignoring that, does the World Cup really help attendance? Because that's what you're banking on, right? For the women's side, is you're banking on that huge, especially since it's in Canada, it's right there. But you're banking on it gaining interest and helping the league.
But here's the other thing with Chivas is that it exists in the same market as LA Galaxy. The Galaxy cannibal. I mean, there's some differences between the fans for the Galaxy and the fans for Chivas, but you were in a market Chivas was in a market dominated by the LA Galaxy. Mm-hmm. So a lot of Chivas fell for a lot of reasons, but it doesn't help that they were in a market that had Landon Donovan and Robbie Keane, and it had a lot of big names.
Mm-hmm. I also think on the men's side, I think the World Cup and the MLS are totally different entities in a lot of people's minds. A lot of the people you have watching the Men's World Cup are more focused on foreign club teams than they are ones in the U.S., whereas the NWSL is very closely linked with the national teams and some of the biggest named players in the world play in the league. You don't have that in the MLS, so you wouldn't expect to see the same sort of bump because you don't have any of the players who are going to be on the first team for the World Cup playing in the MLS.
So John actually says that Germany won the World Cup twice while they had a viable domestic league, and whatever attendance spike they got does not seem permanent. So that's, definitely applicable when you see how huge German football is, and especially their clubs.
But their women's league, they've had terrible attendance for that the entire time.
And I mean, but if you're a fan of the German national team, you're rooting for Frankfurt or Wolfsburg, right? Mm-hmm. Because half your team plays on one team and half your team plays on the other, and there's such huge. So I mean, I don't know what the attendance difference is between those two teams, say, and like other teams, even middle of the table or whatever. But I feel like the attendance should be probably higher for Wolfsburg, especially since their men's side is gaining momentum. Their women's team is amazing, obviously. Yeah.
I think the last attendance numbers, I want to say that the entire league averaged roughly 4,000 fans a game.
Yeah, and the Champions League final, I guess it wasn't in Germany, but it had Wolfsburg and they won, and there was not that many people there.
And that's often like free tickets, and they still don't get people.
That's terrible. That was a fantastic game too, in terms of the number of goals, not in terms of the result.
Yeah, it was something.
We were actually just watching highlights of that game yesterday, Ryan. Right? Told you not to play it because you were.
I was on a Vero kick. I'm sorry, I missed Vero. I wanted to watch some Vero, so we watched Vero. You know what? Maybe she'll come back for the fourth.
Maybe she'll come back
for the next season.
Yeah,
because she's not coming back this year. The transfer window thing just isn't going to work. She's not going to play for a month.
I have not told her that yet. Just like sorry. I haven't told Carla Santa Claus doesn't exist. I haven't told her Vero's not coming back this season. So please do me a favor, because I do not want to have this conversation yet.
Okay, I'm sorry. I won't say anything. There's still a chance.
Oh, our guest is Karen. She is a friend of ours who happened to have won. We got asked. Won our fantasy league group by like a great deal. You missed, Nicole, several of the pointers that she gave at the beginning of our broadcast. Thank you. Attendance was in Lisbon, and it was 11,000. Thank you, John, for correcting me. I really appreciate that, because I hated that I didn't know it when I used to know it at some point. Quick recap of some of the pointers. Have Kristen Press on your team. Make sure you know which teams are playing and which players are playing for which teams, and update your roster regularly. And put in Megan Rapinoe, I think, was a good lesson for week 1.
Except not for week 3, because she won't be playing. Because Seattle doesn't have a game.
Yeah, don't put in Megan Rapinoe for week 3, and don't put in Megan Rapinoe when Megan Rapinoe's not playing for Seattle, and don't put in Megan Rapinoe when Seattle's not playing, period. But put in Megan Rapinoe otherwise. And captain her if you can.
Yeah.
Oh, and pay attention to the injury report, because that's important.
I didn't even ask my MLS fantasy thing too, but they also have midweek games that I wasn't even aware of, so I couldn't trade people out. So I went in with 2 people in the midfield.
How important is that? I mean,
you know what? I got a solid back line. All my points come off of Ridgewell, Borchers, and Villafania.
You see what happens? Read this. You see what happens when you talk about Vera on this show? Bad things happen.
From Michael, finally get on this show, and Karn immediately curbs off her hopes of Vero in 15, preps the pitchforks.
Sorry, I take back everything I said. I won't use logic again, and
Thank you. We don't use logic.
No.
We just need Vero.
And we need fairy tales.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll remember that.
And irrational beliefs.
Yes. And better cameras and microphones. Those can be added.
What happened to the microphone? Didn't we buy one?
I did buy one, and I left it upstairs because I didn't think we needed it, because I had the laptop doing YouTube, and then we did Periscope, and then the thing was upstairs, and I'm not about to go get it. So, and we're also almost done.
No, we are, aren't we? This has been fun. Do we have to be almost done?
Yeah, well, look at your little thing so Michael doesn't yell at us for not using the outline.
Oh.
Let's look and make sure we checked everything off.
Yeah. So we went over NWSL stuff, the Thorns Fantasy League news. Oh, we didn't talk about the U.S. women's team thing.
Yes. So since our last podcast, the roster came out. I mean, it's been like a week, so it wasn't really top of mind. How depressing is it that Rachel Van Hollebeck isn't going to be there? She's the nicest person ever, and I think she deserves all the happiness in the world. But watching her play in Thorns game 1, almost getting an own goal and give the ball away several times made me realize, oh, that's probably why. That's probably why she'll be staying here in Portland.
At least someone's to have the nicest person in the world, because it ain't you right now.
Wow.
The way you just shit talked.
Everyone who knows me knows how much I love Rachel Taylor.
And here we thought that you were doing the curb stomp. It's actually Carla over here.
Wow.
Man.
Okay.
Got some teeth tonight.
Yeah. So what about Crystal Diamond touched on that a little bit when we talked about Washington, but do you think that was a fair? Because I know you and I have
I made the outline. Wait. What did he say? Where's Michael at?
Oh wait, look. Michael says that I checked the outline I made her do. What do I get for it? Well, Ryan made the outline.
Yeah, I made the outline.
In this relationship, Ryan makes the outlines and I make the food.
I make the outlines. I do a little bit of research and I just let her talk because she's just much more eloquent than I am.
I don't know about that.
That's not true. That's we both know that's not true.
Well, okay. What about Crystal Dunn? We talked about this position of left back before, you and I, in private, and how the U.S. team needs one, and they've got people who play it occasionally, right? Like they've got Kelly O'Hara who plays it occasionally. Klingenberg, right? Or she right there.
She's the starting left back.
Yeah. She has the thing I really like about Megan Klingenberg is she has moments of greatness. She has moments of 2 amazing goals. One, during the CONCACAF and one very recently against New Zealand, where she has these great goals, these great moments. But I feel like for the most part, she's just not. I don't know. She's not up there for me. Not starting, making the roster, but not starting for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that they have their best options at left back on the World Cup roster. I think that there are better players that they never gave a chance, like not even called into camp. There's some pretty good outside backs in the NWSL.
Who would you have picked from non-traditional player pool? Would you say like NWSL player pool?
I don't know necessarily who I would put on like the roster, but I would have liked to see someone like Leanne Robinson get more of a chance. I think she got one call up like last year, but hasn't seen anything since.
She's fantastic.
And with as many mistakes as I've seen Klingenberg and as many chances like she's made and many chances she keeps getting, I feel like even if someone didn't have a good camp, they should get at least one more try.
Megan Klingenberg had a terrible Algarve Cup last.
Yeah, don't remind me. I was there. It was one of the most depressing things I've ever seen. Was there in person to watch the U.S. games against Sweden and Japan. Was home at the time Denmark, but
Japan was okay. That was an okay game. It was Japan. It was a year after the Olympic gold medal. You tie Japan. You're like, okay.
Yeah, no, that wasn't bad. The Sweden game.
Ooh.
Now, as long as the U.S. can make sure that Kling does not have to mark Lotta Schlinn in the World Cup, they'll be okay. That's just not a matchup that I want to see on the field ever again.
Is there anyone on our roster, though, who could go toe-to-toe with her?
Well, we have players who aren't a full foot shorter than her.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that is a real problem. It's like, we joke, but you need, I think, your defenders. I mean, we've got Megan Sauber and Christy Rampone who are, tall and strong and, ish. But, compared to Megan Klingenberg and compared to Crystal Dunn for that matter.
Yes, she's also very small.
I'm trying to say that she's better in any way than Klingenberg when obviously she's shorter than Klingenberg. But, yeah, it's a problem. It's going to be a problem.
I'm gonna watch that Sweden game like this. Just the whole time. What conversation are you having over there, Ryan?
Oh, well, we're talking about so John had said something really funny about when we're Michael had tweeted, "Shit, finally get on the show," and Karn immediately curb stomps her hopes of Vero. John's response: "They're going head to head with Men in Blazers. Got to drop bombs." Yeah.
And Nicole points out that Germany and France are a full foot taller than Klingenberg. Which, I mean, if she was really good despite that, I wouldn't bring it up. But the thing is that she's okay, and that's a problem. She's okay, and that particular thing is going to be a real problem when you're trying to win headers against,
Especially because she has a tendency to get distracted. And off-ball defending, she loses track of her player. So when those crosses come into the far post, she's got no idea where the player is that she's supposed to be challenging in the air.
And I bet you that comes back to bite us in the butt somewhere around Sweden. If not Australia. Australia was the game that Crystal Dunn impressed me most because she had to keep up with Lisa Devana, and she did. And she did. When we won that game, she stopped her between her and Hope. The defending and Hope saves. They stopped LD from getting a hat trick. And that's the reason I was so in Crystal Dunn's camp, because watching her in college and watching her on the national team, she just seemed, she seemed really impressive to me.
Well, she makes mistakes. She's still inexperienced, but she has the speed to recover from a lot of them. And that's something that you can't teach.
And then again, if she's always making leg injuries, then that would be a problem.
Yeah.
But she is.
I hope maybe that she has a chance to actually get on the Olympic team, a good NWSL season, and be healthy, and we'll get a real look for the Olympics, more than I feel that she got for the World Cup.
Hopefully. I see a bright future for her. She's great. All right.
What's up?
Any further words?
No. I guess next week we'll probably continue with Periscope, although there was a good point made that the upside to Google, to this Google YouTube thing, is that you do have the landscape, which is much easier to see.
I mean, we could definitely do it like this next week, where we have both, and then this archives it, and this can be for people who don't want to wait for the buffering. Yes.
Yeah, we could do that. Actually, remember the
microphone.
The microphone.
I didn't think this would be a problem, guys. I did buy a microphone. Okay. Well, thanks. Bye.
Is that it? Are we saying no?
Are we saying goodbye? I don't know.
I
was saying goodbye because I thought that we talked about everything.
Yeah, I guess we did. It just feels so abrupt. We need eventually once we figure
an hour.
The ending feels abrupt. That's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, yeah, we're done.
Okay, let's do our musical number that we worked on last week, and then we'll play it out.
Okay,
Keep going,
that's
keep
it.
going,
No, I'm done.